Do-do-do. No, no. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Yo. Hopefully, this live stream is working. Working? Open this. That. Do that. Set up that. Dude, why is it so blowy? Oh, there we go. That's weird. Why is this defaulting to this? Well, before I start... Come on, why is it lagging? Let me get some coffee. Hello, hello, hello. I haven't streamed in a while, so I'm a little nervous, but hopefully we're good. Oh, I'll play Warzone by myself then. The match is about to begin. No, I got pasta.
Use this time for some target practice.
What is so loud?
Enemy soldier incoming. Changing mag. All stations, we are green to go. Stand by for deployment. Enemies are dropping into the area. Watch the skies.
Alright.
Resurgence. Survive the timer to secure redeployment. First call. Speed up the countdown.
Well, I don't suck at this. I haven't played Warzone in a few years. Why is my fucking mic standing in the way?
Enemy dropping into the AO.
Ow. Dude, why is it so laggy? That's silver lag. Let me message Anthony. Why bother? Audio. The 64. I don't want to hold my eardrums.
Enemies are dropping into the area. Watch the skies.
Join that instead. Oh, what is this doing? Shit, I didn't mean to click that. I just loaded everyone where I'm at.
You're losing ground. Moving.
Shit! Keep misclicking. I want long range. That looks fine. Right? No ammo for this. There you go. Isn't this more accurate? This takes longer to aim down sight. I'd rather have this.
Enemy UAV is online.
I just gotta get used to this new headset I have.
Enemies dropping into the AO.
Or these new headphones.
25 are still active in the AO.
Hello?
Friendly loadout drops on the way.
Papa? I open up WarZone and my PC is like, what are you trying to do to me?
UAV overhead.
It's because fucking Call of Duty these days, even if you use the Steam launcher, right, Silent?
Why do you sound like ass?
Because it's Call of Duty fucking everything up.
Yeah,
Hold
it
on.
kind of sounds like you're on like a headset mic.
Enemy UAV is online.
Or it could be
I can
AMD.
notice it even on my phone, which has not the best speaker.
Hostile UAV in the area.
Is that better?
What the?
Hello? Did I fix it?
Yeah?
Oh, so it was AMD noise cancellation bugging out due to WarZone's anti-cheat. Because when when I wasn't in this game, it wasn't causing that problem.
Kind of sounded like you were in.
Enemy soldier incoming.
What was I saying? Oh, Call of Duty these days? Even if you buy it on Steam, which Steam is technically a game launcher too, you can't just launch the game, right? You have to launch the game, and then you have to launch it on Steam, and then it opens up Call of Duty's like separate launcher. So it basically opens up a launcher, and then you have to install WarZone or whatever game of Call of Duty you want, like, separately. Like, you basically open up a launcher when you launch the main game that you have on Steam, and then you have to download the other games through that in order to play them, like the game modes. So, you know, when you're opening a launcher in a launcher in a launcher, which is just running a bunch of background tasks, even if it's only temporary to launch the game, it's going to cause more problems. And then you add a anti-cheat on top of that. Now, the anti-cheat isn't as bad as easy anti-cheat, but what makes most of the problems is the fact that COD needs so much running in the background even just to launch the game. But at least your PC should be, even if we played Warzone, your PC should be able to handle it a lot longer. Or a lot easier.
Go get your revenge.
It would take freaking a day just to download the freaking Warzone.
Well, mine took less than an hour, if that makes you feel any better. Well, technically, it'd take you longer because you
do realize you have 16 times faster download than I do. So, yeah, it would take me about a day.
Also, I'm pretty sure I have a faster SSD than you two. But that makes a smaller percentage of a
That
difference.
doesn't make as much of a difference.
I mean, it makes a difference, but not a huge difference.
Yeah, your average download is 16 times faster than mine.
My average is like 600, 700. But it can cap at 2 gigs if you have an Ethernet port with a good cable that's like a 5 gig port, it could go 2.5. Basically, my plan is not 2 gigabits, it's up to 2 gigabits. But if you have a good Ethernet cable with a more than a 2 gigabit Ethernet port, it technically can make the internet cap out of above what the plan's rated for. So I don't have fiber, but even though I don't have fiber, my internet's faster than yours. Basically, I'm pretty sure if you get Call of Duty Warzone on Steam, you could download it directly through Steam. But if you buy one of the full Call of Duty games, like the newer ones, you have to launch that game and then download Warzone separately when you first download it, which is kind of stupid, but. Also, I found a strat. I watched a YouTube video about it, right? So YouTube has this thing. You know how companies are, websites are trying to promote vertical content now more often? Well, there's basically a thing, right? Well, if you live stream vertical on YouTube instead of non-vertical, your live stream will basically show up in the shorts feed, even if you're not doing shorts, you're live streaming. So then, because it's vertical, YouTube will promote your stream more than non-vertical. So it'd be better at growing your watch hours and stuff. But then I think once you get an audience, I think you should just go back to the normal mode. I already died.
Already died? How the hell did you die? Maybe you need to, tell your commander to.
I also have new headphones, which are technically the audio is better, but I'm not used. You know how even if you upgrade your headphones or headset and the audio is better, your ears have to get used to it because it's different than what you're used to. Basically, the closed back version of my headset, which is called the 700 Pro X, not the 900 Pro X, is better if you want to be immersive and have less background audio be noticeable by you. But open back actually have the sound of footsteps and certain sounds are more noticeable, but explosion. Basically, because open backs usually have less bass. If you're playing a game where there's explosives, if your headset or headphones have too much bass, the bass can actually overwhelm you and distract you, making it harder to hear footsteps. So, because if you have an open back headset, you hear the sound and then it escapes the headset instead of staying contained in the headset. It's less overwhelming, and you can just hear the sound you need, right? But if you have a closed back, the sound doesn't escape as fast, and some of it doesn't escape at all. So because of that, you can hear multiple sound sources at once because you're not letting it escape. And what's stupid is some people make the argument, well, if you're going to have open back, then why don't you, it's like having speakers near your ears. Why not just have speakers? Because it's different, because when you're wearing a headset, even though it's open back, it's closer to your ears, and headset audio also sounds better than, like, speaker audio. So people have this misconception, right? That if you have a open back, that the audio will sound worse because audio is leaking. No, the audio doesn't leak before you're able to hear it. It leaks after you've already heard the sound. So open backs, depending on how they're designed, most of the time footsteps are easier to hear in games, but it's less like immersive. And you have less bass. So when explosives go off, you can pay more attention to the footsteps rather than how loud an explosion is. But then if you're listening to certain music, it sounds worse because of the lack of bass. Well, it's not that it doesn't have bass, it's that the bass isn't, like, amplified. I should probably get a gun. Silent? Next thing you know, I get the 3,000 watch hours and the 500 subs for the minimum monetization. And what's also strange is Twitch has said that they're officially trying to get rid of the requirements to become affiliate. As long as you're not, like, pretty much as long as you're not, like, view botting and shit, you can, and you're not already affiliate, you could get an affiliate on day one without the requirements. But I have a feeling Twitch is going to do that, and then other companies that are desperate for money are going to probably follow. Because you know how, like, you know how they will, like, require, like, websites require you to meet standards to be monetized? I actually think that's stupid. Because, yes, if you make people follow standards to get monetized, they're more likely to get engagement and people spending money and watching ads. But the downside is, you making it require requirements to be monetized, to be accepted in the program to be monetized, actually means less people are actually giving YouTube money. So even though making minimum requirements for monetization means you're more likely to get money, you're actually less likely to get more money because you're limiting how many people can have an option for people to spend money on the channel.
Hostile UAV in the area.
Which is why I think if you're gonna make the requirements shouldn't be as strict. Like, if you compare needing 500 subs versus, like, 50 subs, or 500 subs on YouTube versus, like, 50 followers on Twitch, that's, like, a huge difference. So then YouTube was like, okay, we used to have the full YouTube partner program, 1,000 subs and 4,000 watch hours. But now we're going to have 2 tiers, which is the basic one, which means you only make money for, like, fan funding, and there's no ads that'll monetize. We're going to make it so it's 3,000 watch hours for videos, not counting shorts. And then 500 subs instead of 1,000 subs and 4,000 watch hours. But even that, those standards compared to Twitch and Kick are way more difficult. Because Twitch has an average view amount minimum that you have to reach to be affiliate to be monetized, but it doesn't have a watch hour amount. That's why views aren't indicated to how many watch hours, because you can have people, you can have viewers or views, like watch something, but if they don't watch it for a minimum amount of time and the video that they're watching isn't a minimum length, then it doesn't really count towards a watch hour. Or like a watch time. Now, if you want to get your watch time with, shorts, then it's like 10 million total shorts views in like 90 days. So, but it's like one or the other. You could either target both, and then when you get monetized, you probably a higher priority for YouTube to push your content. But, or you could just make it easier and try to target one or the other. I'm gonna have work tomorrow. Tomorrow. Where'd this dude go? How are you?
I'm back online.
When they did the slide kill thing, or they like slid to dodge my bullets, but some reason it seems like in Apex when you slide, you don't slide as fast, and you don't slide as much of a distance. That's why if someone tries to slide while they're running to avoid getting killed, it's much more difficult to like not be hit. I'm just still debating on what I might price the memberships if I make them. But because YouTube has a overall bigger audience than Twitch and Kick does, even though they're less known for live streaming, technically making the price cheaper will make less money, but it might make more money in the long run because more people can afford doing, like, signing up. An error code. Dun-dun-dun. Anthony says he has to get his new motherboard that's coming today because his pins chipped on his motherboard. Somehow. Dude, why are you moving faster than me when you have a gun that's heavier?
They can't.
Doesn't make sense.
Enemy UAV overhead. Enemy UAV is online.
In my opinion, it's like, sometimes battle royale games are difficult, especially if you have ADHD, because there's so much like to focus on one at once that your brain is just like overwhelmed.
Window is about to close.
When I missed,
Reloading.
ow.
Moving.
It's also weird that the default action key is F. No, fuck!
Fire sales done. Prices are back to normal.
I accidentally bumped my desk and my keyboard realigned, and then it messed up my button placement, and I accidentally opened the map in the middle of combat.
God.
I'm the map, I'm the map, I'm the map.
You need to see the map in order to do better in your combat.
Oh.
This is the end
Did
game.
you know that? That you need to open the map.
That doesn't even make sense, because I shot him first.
I'm back up.
Get ready. You're redeploying.
I thought you first, but you did more than But you aimed that.
But I think it's because I panicked and didn't regenerate my shields. Or recharge my shields. So even if I technically did more damage, he had shields, I didn't. So I actually did more damage to his shields rather than his actual health.
Gas is closing in.
There's no point for me to get my loadout because I don't fully have full access to create a class yet.
Only 4
Because
remain. Finish the job.
because of the new season and adding more new weapons that are more powerful, they de-ranked everyone in order to balance it out. So that way you're not at a higher rank and get access to the weapons for created class day 1 of like when the weapons release. I'm pretty sure that's why.
You devoted.
Enemy UAV overhead.
I didn't mean to
Enemy
pick that
UAV
up.
online. You're in
Well, I
the
didn't mean to
top
drop
three.
a fucking grenade or a satchel charge right next to me.
Taking effective fire.
No,
You're in
where
the
did you?
last 2. Now finish it. Less than 5 was still
Where'd it
standing.
go? Where'd it go? I'm cutting eyes out. Where's the field view? The volume.
When Windows default sounds louder than stereo.
The inbound. Headphones are out of memory.
Or do you want to add a base boost that's just gonna make it harder to hear footsteps when grenades explode? What is this doing? What the I clicked play again, what? I also might switch back to the Basculus mouse or get like a Viper, which is like slightly bigger than the Cobra. Because even though it's lighter and the button reacts faster, depending on the model you're comparing, it's just, it's hard for me to like grip it in my hand. It's like slippery and it doesn't like fully it's too small for my hand.
Wet?
No, it's the type of plastic they use. It's like a glossy finish instead of a matte, so it's like harder to hold in your hand. And it's too small for my hand. Try again. No, I got pasta. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, Resurgent is the mode where you can respawn as much as you want unless the match ends. The normal Battle Royale modes used to not have respawning at all, but now they make the norm. Oh my god, now it's too loud. It wasn't this loud in the menu, which is like weird. What was it saying? Oh, the normal WarZone, like, Battle Royale mode, when WarZone 1 came out, which is technically the same thing as this, it's just, they call it a different number WarZone because of the season, but it's technically the same game. They used to have it where you couldn't respawn at all. And if you were down but not fully dead, people could just revive you. But once you're dead, you couldn't respawn. And then to make it more balanced and fair and more enjoyable, they now make it so the standard mode that doesn't have respawning still lets you respawn, but you have to... Your teammate has to get a bunch of money and then go to a store in the game and then spend a bunch of money for you to respawn. This game mode has respawn on by like default without needing to do that. But then there's like certain time frames in the game where respawning is turned off. And then it goes back online again. So as long as you don't die during that short amount of time, you pretty much can respawn.
Enemy UAV overhead.
Enemy UAV. The only reason I'm playing WarZone is because the newer Modern Warfare 2 kind of sucks. And I'm interested in Black Ops 6 a little, but I don't want to pay the money for it because Call of Duty is not really that good of a game anymore. Due to all the technical issues and bullshit they started.
Hostile UAV in the area.
See, now it sounds quiet. 65. I'm gonna do this. God damn it.
Birthday.
What?
It's supposed to storm on my birthday.
Yeah? Stormy storm storm? Then you know you get a fire tornado.
You've
That
got
would
gas
kind of suck,
moving
wouldn't
in.
it?
No, it's Sharknado. Even though realistically, if a tornado happened in an ocean, it'd technically not be a tornado, it'd technically be a hurricane. And the sharks would just die because of the pressure and the wind speed of the hurricane slash tornado. And then it's also the fact that it would probably throw the shark against like a building or something. So there's no way the sharks would stay alive in the water. Stop doing that to me!
No.
You shouldn't be able to move faster if you have a gun that weighs more than the person who has an SMG that weighs less.
Enemy UAV overhead.
But then also people have found out that the newer COD games nowadays have a thing that they claim to be balancing, but it's really not. And what it basically does is once you become a certain like skill, it actually makes it so you get kills less, even if you're versing people that are a worse player than you, as a way to prevent you from your rank going high too quickly, so that way the noobs can feel like they enjoy the game better, so they're more likely to spend more money on the game.
UAV is online.
That's why even if your skill is really, really good, there's a point where the game doesn't allow you to have any more skill. Because even if you aim the same, even if you have a better gun than someone and better skill level, and your shots are more accurate and you hit a part of the body that does more damage, you have random times where there's like an algorithm in the game and it goes, how about no, we're gonna do less damage even though you have the better class.
I'm back up.
Go get your revenge.
Because they came to realize that most of the people spending money, like on skins and stuff, are the people that are worse at the game. So they're like, we're just gonna like favor people who are bad at a game in order to get more, try to get more money. And it's not just that, it's when you favor people who are worse at a game, you'll get more people playing the game.
I'm back.
Because then you can target a wide audience instead of just tryhards. Now, it doesn't help that you have that feature on top of the fact that I suck at Battle Royales, but I'm good at standard multiplayer.
You can't play.
Still standing.
Too bad we can't really play himself because,
Shake it off.
you know, well, I don't think you have the game, and two, your the you know, the host is kind of is without a PC, because you know, Anthony was the one hosting it.
Well, he said technically he has a PC, but technically his CPU has integrated graphics, so he could use that temporarily until he gets a card. But he just...
Graphics and that CPU is worse than his.
Yeah, but it's still enough to play that game. That's my point. But the main problem is his motherboard broke, so he has to wait for a new one to show up. Because integrated graphics in a CPU isn't as bad as it used to be. So, like, it's probably equivalent to, like, a 1070. Which is worse. Well, technically a 1070 outperforms a 5700. In games that favor it.
Rated up to 8700G. That's an actual dedicated GPU.
No, but it doesn't matter because the 8700G is a dedicated GPU. Basically, an 8700G is better at graphics than the CPUs below that. But the CPUs above that aren't even targeted towards graphics still have better graphics because it's a new architecture. Like, you don't have to have something marketed as better graphics in order for it to have better graphics. It's the same reason why 3D chips give you more FPS in games that benefit from, that take advantage of 3D cache. But a 5800X, this is too loud now. A 5800X 3D actually gets you less gaming performance than a 9700X, which doesn't have 3D cache. Because the way the architectural difference is designed, the fact that it has DDR5 instead of DDR4, and the fact that the clock speed is faster, and the way it's designed is better. So a 9800X 3D gives you better FPS in games that like 3D cache than a 9700X, because the 9700X doesn't have 3D cache. But the 9700X gives you a 30 to 40% performance difference in a game than a 5800X 3D, even though the 5800X 3D has V cache or 3D cache versus the 9700X doesn't. So 3D cache doesn't always mean it gets better. It's more about how it's designed. And 3D cache isn't mainly an FPS difference, it's a MS difference between frames, not the amount of frames itself. So it doesn't boost your average FPS, it makes the lag when your frames go up and down less. And it makes your 1% lows and 0.5% and 0.1% lows a higher FPS. But it does, your average FPS, it doesn't change much. So when your FPS randomly lowers to 1% lows, that number will be higher. So when it lowers, the amount it lowers is less noticeable. So you have less, like, screen tearing and shit.
Like rebar off versus on occur.
I'm back up.
So if you're 1% lows without a 3D chip, a newer 3D chip, a newer 3D CPU, in the games that benefit from it, instead of your 1% lows, instead of, say, your average FPS is like 200, but then your 1% lows being like 30, your 1% lows might be 60. So the drop from 200 average frames to 60 is a smaller difference than going from 200 to 30. But even though the 9700X isn't a 3D chip, it outperforms the 5800X 3D in average FPS. But in a game that uses 3D cache, your 1% lows will be better in the 5800X 3D, because it's a 3D chip. But then, the fact that you have a 9700X which supports DDR5 versus DDR4 RAM, that will make up for that will actually improve your average FPS, because even though DDR4 has less latency for its CL timing for RAM than DDR5, the clock speed of DDR5 is faster. But clock speed in RAM doesn't always matter, because think about it this way. The reason for Ryzen CPUs, it's recommended to have 6,000 milliseconds of RAM instead of like 6,400 or higher, is because faster clock speed RAM matters when you're actually utilizing the RAM. But if your MS for your cache latency is too high in latency, basically, cache latency is when your CPU tells the rest of your system, hey, we need to utilize and use more RAM. If you have a smaller cache latency number, which means your cache latency is faster, when your PC realizes it needs to take RAM to use, it will take it at a faster rate. But then once the RAM is actually being used, the clock speed of your RAM matters. It's kind of like if you had a really fast engine. that goes at a high RPM, but then having a shit ton of delay when you actually accelerate.
Hostile UAV in the area.
It's like, yeah, the engine's faster, but it takes longer to get to the speed.
Or imagine push down on the gas pedal, and it takes like 5 seconds before it starts moving.
Yeah, it's like having an engine that goes at 200 miles an hour at like 5,000 RPM, but then having it take 20 seconds to actually accelerate.
On the gas pedal.
It's like, yeah, the engine runs at a higher RPM. The gears run at a higher RPM and the top speed is faster, but it takes forever to get to it. So in a game or whatever is needing to use more RAM, you'll be waiting and waiting and waiting for the RAM to use. And then once it's actually being used, then the clock speed matters.
2 minutes to play before your free trial ends.
But then there's also a point where if you go over a certain RAM clock speed, even if you try to keep the latency low, it causes compatibility issues. So even if you're getting more FPS due to the higher clock speed, and you're trying to keep your MS or like your CL timings as low as possible, that doesn't really benefit you if your game and everything keeps crashing, because you're running clock speed of RAM way beyond what your CPU can handle. But then you also have the reverse effect, like how a lot of Teslas, like the newer, higher spec models, accelerate faster than Lamborghinis, but the top speed is less, and they can't maintain this top speed without overheating as much. So even if the top speed in the all electric vehicles was higher than a Lamborghini, which is not, but if it was, it would throttle down its top speed automatically to prevent it from overheating. So you have to have like a balance. If something registers fast, it's faster. But if its actual speed that it maintains is slower, then it's also slow. But if the speed of which it maintains is fast, but then it takes forever to register to go to that speed, then it's still technically slow. That's why DDR4 has less latency and faster CL timings than DDR5, but it's not dramatically faster, which is why DDR5 still has a better performance benefit, because even though the latency is slower, it's not dramatically slower. Now, if the difference between DDR5 was CL like 80 versus like CL 16, then it would be a problem. But the fact that it's like CL 30, like CL 28, 30, 32, and 36, and 40, compared to 16 isn't that big of a difference. Because what people don't understand is it's in milliseconds. Like, that millisecond time is so fast, it's faster than your eyesight can even register, like your eyes can even register an image. Well, your eyes can register an image in under 30 milliseconds, but there's a
It's in nanoseconds.
No, but listen.
So it's even faster.
No, listen. Your eyesight picks up something faster than milliseconds, but your brain doesn't actually register what you're looking at until it's like in milliseconds. That's why when you look at something, your eyes see it, but your brain registers it in a delay. Which is why when you try to react to something, saying like a sport, you have to focus on muscle memory more than you focus on like eyesight reaction. Because if you have good muscle memory, you can learn to... If you have good muscle memory, you can teach yourself to react fast. Like, you can teach yourself to do something sooner. Like, before your brain picks it up, so you don't have to wait for your brain to register it.
Target down. Taking fire.
Enemy UAV is
Which is the same reason why if you say, like, rollerblading or ice skating or whatever, or, like, skateboarding, and you know you're about to, like, fall, you actually have to brace yourself for oh, not brace yourself. You have to prepare yourself for the fall before you actually know when you're
UAV overhead.
exactly going to hit the ground. Because if you train muscle memory, you will be able to correct your fall. But if you wait till your brain registers that when you're going to actually hit the ground, basically, your brain will register, I'm about to fall. But you have to react to it before you, like,
I'm back online.
your brain knows when you're gonna, like, when you look at the ground and you see that you're falling, you're actually supposed to react to it ahead of time. So you prepare to hit the ground, rather than waiting for your brain to register that the ground is in front of you. Which, to do that, isn't eyesight related, it's muscle memory related.
Gas is closing in.
Like, if you fall off, like, if you fall, like, rollerblading, as an example, the way you know you're gonna fall is because you'll feel your legs, like, move towards the ground. Like, you'll feel your body's momentum move towards the ground, so you know you're gonna fall before you even visually see that you're falling.
No.
And then you have the idiots that don't understand how falling physics work. And what they do is they tense up and they're like, why did I break my fucking shoulder or whatever? It's because when you tense up and try to go against the direction you're falling, you basically hit as hard as possible, almost like a pancake on the ground. But if you actually move towards the direction of your falling, it reduces the impact. So as an example, if you fall forward on rollerblades and you roll towards the direction you're falling, instead of going against the fall, instead of, say you go to fall on your, like, arm. If you fall on your your shoulder and you roll towards your falling, and
Got a loadout drop inbound.
how do I word this? So if you fall on your shoulder and you roll towards the direction you know you're falling towards, instead of putting all the impact and force on one part of your shoulder, you're distributing it across your body, so you actually have less impact force on that part of your body, so you're less likely to break a bone. Which is why when I made a mistake while rollerblading, and also the fact that I was rollerblading on wheels that were partially broken, I tripped and fell. But the way I fell made the concrete kind of feel like, it didn't feel like I was falling on concrete. It just felt like soft. Or like when people fall, what sometimes they'll do is their natural instinct is to put their hands in front of them. And then they break their fucking hand because you're basically taking all the force of the impact and putting all that pressure all on your hand. So, like, say you're rollerblading at, like, I don't know, 20, 25 miles an hour, like, really fast. And then you hit the ground and you push your hands in front of you. That will generate enough force to break probably multiple bones in your hand.
25 remain. The enemy took that one.
So what you actually want to do is if your hands are in front of you, you actually want to push your hands to the side or behind you. Basically, you still put your hands towards the ground, but you actually sweep your hands to the side or behind you to push yourself forward instead of, like, resisting where you're going. But a lot of people don't understand that. They're like, well, you're telling me if I fall, you want to force yourself to move forward, which the direction you're falling instead of going against it? Yes. It's kind of like if you parachute and your parachute breaks halfway to hitting the ground, and then your new parachute opens. Because your parachute wasn't open the entire time because you had one break and you had to open a new one, the chance of you dying or breaking a bone is a lot less because you had at least some parachute. Now, obviously, it'd be better if your parachute was open the entire time because you'd slow down, but it's kind of like that. It's kind of like if you have a parachute open at, like, the last few minutes of you landing on the ground, it's less of a problem than if you didn't have a parachute. Or if you fall backwards on the ground, you force yourself to try to actually fall on your shoulder, and then you tuck your head inwards. And when you fall on your shoulder, that way your head is away from the ground, even though you're rolling backwards. But even if you can't correct it in time to fall on your shoulder or your arm, if you still roll backwards, you might hit your head, but because you're rolling towards the impact instead of bracing against the impact, the force generated when you hit your head is less severe. So you might get like a concussion or like a bruise on your head versus like permanent damage. But the reason why people try to go against the impact is because they're scared of being hurt while falling. But if you fall the correct way, depending on the speed of which you're falling at, it might not actually hurt. And if it does, it will feel like a small like sting for like a few seconds. If you fall the wrong way, it might hurt for like a few days or weeks. Which is why when I fell a couple of days ago rollerblading, I knew I fell the right way because I felt a small like sting, like a stinging sensation from the impact, but I didn't get road rash and I didn't get a cut or anything, even though I fell on concrete. Because I rolled the right way, so the impact was reduced so much that it just caused like pain for like half a minute. But it didn't but other than that, I didn't really have any scabs or anything, or bruises. You know what it felt like? It felt like if you on a trampoline and you jumped as high as you could. Oh no, it felt like imagine if you were on like a high level of something and you jump on a trampoline the wrong way. Yes, the trampoline is reducing your impact because it has some give. But if you fall at a height that's too high, you're still going to feel hurt. So it's kind of like that. It's kind of like, oh, for like half a minute to like a minute or two, you might feel some small pain. But then after that, it just kind of goes away. Compared to, you know, breaking a bone and tearing a ligament. So it's like you're gonna fall regardless. So if you're aware that you're gonna fall, it might hurt a little, but at least reduce the impact, so you have a small amount of pain versus like damaging part of your body that might need like surgery or something. Because, you know, it's, even if you need like a band-aid, it's probably a lot, you know, it's a lot more cost effective to go buy band-aids for like a bruise or like even if you have to get stitches, it's still more cost effective to stitch like a cut than it is to do surgery to fix a broken bone. In the fact that depending on the bone you break, you might miss days of work, which could affect your income. Which is why you see people who do parkour like fall from like 30 feet and they don't break any bone in their body. They just feel pain because wrestlers do the same thing, except the difference is wrestlers a lot of times when they fall on something, it has like an airbag, or the thing works like an airbag. Like falling, what people don't understand about wrestling is when you fall on those wooden tables, they're breakaway tables. So even though you think, oh, I'm falling on a piece of wood, that's still better than falling on concrete. Because it's a breakaway table. So it like gives. So you're still falling on wood. It's still gonna fucking hurt. But the wood is made to break under a certain amount of weight and pressure. And then when they jump on like the announce table, which is made out of metal and hard plastic, you would think that would damage your body to the extreme because it's metal versus the normal tables are wood. But the way it doesn't cause that problem is because they have hidden airbags in it. So they have like a system where it's like an airbag, but when the table collapses and the airbag deploys, you don't actually see the airbag on the camera view, even though it is technically there. So not only wrestlers are falling from big heights and reducing the impact by falling the correct way, it's also the fact that what they're falling on is specifically designed to fall on. And even if you see a wrestler like miss and just hit the ground, the floor that most wrestling events have, where the wrestlers stand on, if they go to fall on a table on a wrestler and they fuck up and miss, the floor is padded too. So you're gonna cause more damage than if you just fell on a table, but you're gonna cause less damage than if the floor didn't have padding. You have failed.
You failed. Game over. Hey, game over. Game over.
I'm asking my mom about something. I spelled wipes wrong.
Has been issued for your area.
I'm asking my mom to send me some extra money to go buy glass wipes, and it's also because apparently when I ordered something on Walmart for like same day delivery, it charged me. It didn't charge me right away, so I went back to Walmart the next day and went to like buy something else, and then because I spent enough money, well, I didn't have enough money left over to actually cover the purchase I made like a day ago. It basically did a negative balance. Basically, I have overdraft protection on, so it will like it automatically declines if I don't have enough to buy it. But the reason it didn't do this time is because there was a pending transaction that was delayed. So basically, my bank went, okay, we'll let you borrow money and have a negative balance, even though you have that setting off, in order to prevent you from your payment, for you able to actually pay for the thing you paid for. Because it's not like you're going to get the item shipped to you, and then they're going to be like, it's okay if you don't pay. Because, like, what? They already gave you the item. So then if the bank is aware of that, they'll let the payment go through anyways, even though you have it to auto-decline. So I have to go get glass wipes anyways. So I'm like, if my mom sends me money to help cover it, at least the balance will go away.
All stations, this is Shadow 01. Deployment to the war.
But have you noticed that? Like, you know how some people have a negative balance, like, all the time? The only time I get negative balance is when someone is an asshole and sends me money and then does a chargeback on my end, like, on my end, or, like, on their end, and then I get a negative balance because of the chargeback due to spending the money. Basically, if someone sends me money, I spend the money, and then they do a chargeback, which gets approved, then it does a negative balance because I have to pay back the chargeback. Or if you had a situation like this where I bought something and it didn't charge me right away, and I didn't know that, so then when I went to buy something and ended up having less money in the account than the cost to buy the item, it basically caused a negative balance because the bank approved the transaction, even though I didn't have enough money to pay for it, because the payment was delayed. Other than that, it will auto-decline, and I never have a negative balance. Now, if I have an upcoming thing to pay for, or I need to, like, buy something in, like, an emergency or something, I could turn off chargeback protection and let me borrow money in order to buy something if it's really needed to pay for it. That's why technically my debit card doesn't have credit, but technically if you can get a negative balance by borrowing money, technically there is credit there. It's just the credit amount is, like, very fucking low. It's like, if I wanted to turn off chargeback protection and have it let it overdrawn without just auto declining, it will let me do that at, like, maybe, like, at most $60 borrowed within, like, 3 months. But anything beyond that, for my bank, I basically have to request, like, a loan. Or sign up for a credit card. So, in a way, my debit card technically has credit. Even though it's not advertised and marketed as a credit card. Does that make sense? So I have just enough credit on my debit card where if there's a situation where I absolutely need to buy something, then I'm okay going to a negative balance if it's like a small negative balance. But because there's a limit on how much you can borrow within like a 3-month period, it prevents me from my negative balance being